Hey guys, welcome to another pickups episode. Today we're looking at all the games I picked up in the month of March. Sit back, relax, and enjoy these pickups. Alright guys, let's start this video off with something that came in the mail yesterday. Super excited about, and I think you'll like this one. So check this out. I got myself a PlayStation 3. Now this is the CECHA01 model. This thing is backwards compatible with PlayStation 1 games, PlayStation 2 games, and it will play the PlayStation 3 catalog. If you didn't know, when Sony first released the PlayStation 3, it was backwards compatible with PlayStation 2 games. It had the hardware built right into it that it can play PlayStation 2 games in HD quality, which is really a selling point for someone like me who collects for all those consoles, who collects for all those games. Now, what happened was Sony, it cost them $900 to manufacture just one of these consoles. So $900, and they sold it at a $600 price. So basically, they were taking a hit on it, and the reason why they did that was because the PlayStation 2 is the best-selling console of all time. Those things just flew off the shelves, and when they started making the PlayStation 3, they were like, let's put all this hardware into it, a Blu-ray player. Let's give it the ability to play our PlayStation 1 catalog, our PlayStation 2 catalog. And what happened was the console didn't sell immediately like they expected it to. So what happened was they started stripping down all the parts of it so that they can manufacture it at a cheaper price. Like I said, this thing cost $900 to make whenever it was first manufactured. If you don't know a whole lot about the PlayStation history, the CECHA01 model is the model that's most sought after. So this one's pretty expensive on the market. I ended up getting mine for about half price of what they're selling for, and I got it on shopgoodwill.com. I always tell you guys to keep a lookout on shopgoodwill.com because you'll find awesome gaming items for a huge discount price. If you didn't see that video, I'll leave the link in the description, or you can click the link up above. I'd watch that after watching this. It's a really good, informative video. It's not it's not the best edited video or anything on the internet, but it's going to give you some information of how you can win some awesome items in awesome auctions like this PlayStation 3 here. So I'm so excited to be adding a PlayStation 3. I literally haven't had a PlayStation 3 or a PlayStation 4. I don't own those two consoles yet, but now I have a PlayStation 3, and I'm hoping to own a PlayStation 4. Hopefully yard sale season starts coming around, and it's good to me. For right now, the prices are just way too high for me to jump into the PlayStation 4, and the games are just too high in price and stuff like that. So I'm starting out with the PlayStation 3, and it's cool because I can play my PlayStation 2 games, and I can play my PlayStation 1 games on there as well. So PlayStation 3 added to the collection this month. Awesome. So adding a PlayStation 3 to the collection, I needed to get some PlayStation 3 games. I only bought one this month, but this came in pretty late. So the first game I got is 3D Dot Game Heroes. I picked this up on eBay. Just something I really needed a title that I knew that was exclusive to the PlayStation 3 library that was really in my wheelhouse. And 3D Dot Game Heroes was one of those games. It's a really cool game. I started playing it a little bit today. Didn't get very far in it. The game plays a lot like a Zelda game, but it's got a unique graphical style developed by Atlas, who developed some really good RPGs. I've mentioned them before in some past videos and stuff. But this game so far, what I've played of it, has been awesome, and I'm so stoked to be adding some PlayStation 3 exclusive titles to the collection. So 3D Dot Game Heroes added to the collection. Another item that I got this month, and I had to wait a little bit for it, and it was worth the wait. Definitely worth the wait. I got the 8-bit do, 8-bit do Sega Genesis controller. This is a wireless controller for the Sega Genesis. It plays really well. I've heard some mixed reviews on it, but I'll tell you that I really, really like this thing. But really, to have no wires and to be able to play my Sega Genesis games in my Sega Genesis library with a wireless controller, a really, really well-built wireless controller, is really, really awesome. You should definitely keep an eye out for it. It costs $25 if you're a retro game enthusiast. If you really, really like the Sega Genesis console, this is a must-have in my opinion. The buttons feel great. The controller's weight feels really, really good. The D-pad is like a 6-button Sega Genesis controller. It feels really, really good. I've been really, really testing this thing out and putting it to work, and I have not even charged this thing yet, and it's been a month. So a month of use, and I use my Sega Genesis pretty regularly, and I haven't even had to charge this thing yet. So it's pretty crazy to me that the technology that 8-bit do, 8-bit do puts into their products is really awesome, and you should definitely keep an eye out for it. I'll leave a link in the description of where you can get this thing. I highly recommend it. Like I said, if you play Sega Genesis games, this is something that you should definitely own. So one game that I was really excited to add for the Super Nintendo, and I don't add a whole lot of Super Nintendo games yet, but I do add some games that I really, really like, and I think that I'm going to play through a lot more, and that is Lock On. I actually got this from Retro Rec Room. I ended up keeping this game. It's been a lot of fun to play. I've been really enjoying this one. It's kind of got like an afterburner feel to it, and I always like flight games like that. And it was like $7.99, I think, from Retro Rec Room, so I decided to hang on to it. It's actually the only game that I kept from Retro Rec Room this month. So Lock On for the Super Nintendo. So I got out to a few flea markets at the beginning of the month, and I ran across a guy who had a couple of NES games and a couple of NES items. And one of the games that I picked up from him was Cobra Command. Haven't had a lot of time to play it, but I'm always looking for good NES games, and this one seemed to be reasonably priced. I think he had it for $2, so I couldn't even find that at a local retro video game store for that price. So $2 for that, and then I also, for another $2, I scooped up Cobra Triangle. So I got Cobra Command and Cobra Triangle all for about $4 total. Just cool NES titles to add to the collection. Alright, next up I'm going to go over some Genesis games. If you know me, you know I love my Genesis. So there's a lot of Sega Genesis games that I'm going to go through here. And I'm going to start it off with Mario Lemieux Hockey. The Penguins are about to enter in the playoffs, and I'm super excited about it. And, I figured I'd pick up the Mario Lemieux Hockey game. Not as great as NHL 96, in my opinion. I like 96. Everyone seems to remember NHL 94, but I remember NHL 96. It's the game that I grew up with, and in my opinion, I think it's a better game, a better title. As you would expect, I guess it's newer, essentially, but I haven't played it a lot, but I love hockey, and I'm a huge hockey fan, and not only that, I'm a Penguins fan, so Mario Lemieux Hockey had to have it into the collection. One game I picked up early on in the month, and this one has been a joy to own. It's a pretty rare title on the Sega Genesis. That's Troubleshooter on the Sega Genesis. An awesome game. It's a shooter game. You play as these two girls. Plays a lot like Forgotten Worlds, if you've ever played that. But it's got an awesome shoot 'em up style to it, and it's a whole style in its own. The gameplay has been a joy for me to play. I love good shooter games, not like first person shooter games, but I love like good old school shooter games, and this one is a rare title on the Sega Genesis, so super stoked to be adding Troubleshooter to the collection. A game I got pretty cheap that I think is a hidden gem on the Sega Genesis is Zoom. This game is kind of like an arcade style game. You go around in a little board, and basically you want to trace and kind of cut out the blocks in the board. So if you trace around one of the blocks or the squares, you basically, it'll fill in with color, and you want to get all of them in the board. 1 to 2 player game. It's a good little couch co-op game, and not too expensive on the Sega Genesis. Plays a lot like Ultimate Quicks. So definitely a title that you should look out for if you're looking for a good little 2-player arcade style game. Look no further than Zoom on the Sega Genesis. So one game that is a pretty good title on the Sega Genesis is Phantom 2040. This game plays a lot like a side scroller, kind of has some shooter elements to it. A lot of fun to play through. I have the Super Nintendo version, and I've played through that. From what I hear, this one is really close to that version and plays really well. I got it boxed, manual and everything, so pretty cool to be adding Phantom 2040. This is based off of an old show from back in the 90s. I didn't watch a lot of the show, but I did recognize the character from that, and like I said, it's kind of a cool game. Another game that's not a very expensive title on the Sega Genesis, and you should definitely look out for it, Phantom 2040. Next up, I got an Electronic Arts game, and that is LHX Attack Chopper. Kind of like a 3D chopper game. Plays really different from the Jungle Strike and the Desert Strike series games. Just kind of an interesting title, and I picked it up for pretty cheap. So LHX Attack Chopper on the Sega Genesis. Next up, I got a couple sports games that I got a lot, and one of them is NBA Jam. This is an awesome game for the Sega Genesis. It's an awesome game for the Super Nintendo. It's an awesome game all around. Everywhere that it's been ported to has had really good reviews. I played through this a couple times. Awesome little sports title that went under the radar for me. I was never really into basketball games, but this one is an arcade style 2-on-2. If you know anything about NBA Jam, you know this is a pretty good game, and I picked this up in a lot and ended up paying for itself. So NBA Jam for the Sega Genesis. 2 games that I got in that sports lot are College Football's National Championship 1 and College Football's National Championship 2. One's boxed and one's not. Awesome little early football games, and kind of interested in playing through a little bit more of these games. Cool to be adding them to the collection as well. Next up is a golf game on the Sega Genesis, and that is Pebble Beach Golf Links. It's a golf game on the Sega Genesis. I'm just going for all kinds of sports games on the Sega Genesis. They're pretty cheap, and you can get them in some pretty cheap lots. So, adding that to the title, it's not a title that I'm going to spend a whole lot of time with, but you never know. I might have a friend who's interested in some golf games, and I wouldn't mind sitting back playing some golf games. This is 1 to 4 players, too, so if you want to sit through 4 players of playing some Sega Genesis style golf, be my guest, but I'm not going to be that person. Haven't even played it, but it's kind of cool to be adding it to the collection as well. Another game I got in that same lot is F-22 Interceptor. This game is, pretty horrible by today's standards. Did not age well. A lot like LHX Attack Chopper. It's like a very early 3D game on the Sega Genesis where you're playing in a F-22 Interceptor. Kind of a cool, neat title. I imagine at the time it was, it blew people's minds, but not going to blow anyone's minds in this day and age. But kind of cool to add it to the collection as well. Next up is a title that I've been looking at a lot for the Sega Genesis, and that is Marvel Land, developed by Namco. If you know anything about Namco, they're an awesome developer. This game, I went through the first couple of levels. It's a little bit challenging. It's a side-scrolling platformer. You're going to be moving through levels and traveling from left to right on the screen. Haven't played a whole lot of it, but it's a title that I was definitely excited to add to the collection for the Sega Genesis. Next up is General Chaos on the Sega Genesis, another EA developed game. Plays really cool. It's kind of like a strategy game. Really cool and interesting game. It's a title that you can add to your collection on the cheap. It's pretty fun to play player versus player. It's also a co-op game, so you can play 2 players against the computer as well. And it's been a lot of fun to play this thing. So I was looking for this game. One of my buddies recommended this game to me, and I ended up finding it for a pretty cheap price. So General Chaos. Next up is a little RPG on the Sega Genesis, very early RPG title, and that's called Fatal Labyrinth. Basically, you're going to be moving through all these levels in this tower and collecting armor and new swords, new weaponry, and moving yourself up the levels. Since it's an early RPG title, you're not going to get a whole lot of combat features in this game. Basically, when you're fighting someone, you just walk into them, and if you're powered up enough, you can beat them. If not, you'll lose to them, and basically you go back to the beginning. So kind of a cool little early RPG. I love early RPGs, especially on the Sega Genesis, and cool to be adding Fatal Labyrinth to the collection. Alright guys, another title that I was playing, I picked up on the cheap, just picking up games, and I ran across this. This is one that I don't really see out and about a lot, and it's called A Dinosaur's Tale. I remembered it from the old movie, and I thought it was, this must be a re-release of the movie, and this game must be based off that. I was playing it, and it's kind of crappy, to be honest, but still kind of cool to be putting some more Genesis games into my collection. Always looking to beef up my Sega Genesis collection, so kind of cool to add that. Another game that I picked up at the flea market was Hook on the Sega Genesis. Not a great game. For a game that's not that great, this game is actually selling for a pretty high price, in my opinion, on the Sega Genesis, and I was able to pick it up at a flea market. I think I paid like $8 for it, so to pick up these NES games and this game at the flea market, that was kind of cool. So Hooked on the Sega Genesis. And last but not least is a title on the Sega Genesis, Jurassic Park. Really, really cool game. This is actually the made in Mexico version, so not the greatest, when it comes to that. When it comes to collector standards, you're going to want to kind of try to stay away from the made in Mexico items, but I popped it in and played it, and it plays really well. One interesting thing about Jurassic Park games on a variety of systems is that they all play different, and the Sega Genesis version, in my opinion, is one of the best ones because it's like a platformer. You can either play as a Velociraptor or you can play as a human. It's kind of cool in that regard. And like I said, this is a game that's really cheap on the Sega Genesis, and one that I didn't have, one that I'm glad to add to the collection. Alright guys, and early on in the month I did pick up some PlayStation 2 titles. The first one I picked up is called Gungrave for the PlayStation 2. I was playing through this game, and your character kind of moves slow, but it's got a really, really cool anime style to it, and a lot of the cutscenes are anime style. So if you like anime style games, this is a game that you could keep an eye out for. Price is fluctuating on it right now, but game that was published by Sega, and I love Sega, obviously. Definitely a game that you might want to keep your eye out for. Like I said, it does play kind of slow. The controls are a little bit tanky, but I found some value in it. I enjoyed what I played of it so far. And next we have another PlayStation 2 exclusive, and that's Tribes Aerial Assault. Haven't played this game a whole lot yet, but I'm looking forward to popping this thing into the PlayStation 3 and checking it out. Next up is, in my opinion, a hidden gem on the PlayStation 2, and that's Astro Boy for the PlayStation 2. Kind of a cool story in this game. It's been a lot of fun playing so far from what I've played of it, and once again, developed by Sega, which is always something I look out for in games, because really with the death of the Dreamcast, when they basically, when Sega kind of threw its hat into the ring and said, you know what, we're only going to concentrate on video games, they really published some really quality titles, and this is one of them. So keep an eye out for this game because it's a PlayStation 2 exclusive, and you can only get it there, and it's definitely a game that I've been enjoying so far. Once again, I've got another PlayStation 2 exclusive, and that's Gran Turismo 3. I'm a huge fan of racing games, and Gran Turismo is a PlayStation exclusive title that is really cool in my opinion. Gran Turismo, it's just one of those classic titles that everybody has owned and everybody has played, But I really enjoyed it, and I picked it up for $2 at a flea market. So $2 to be adding Gran Turismo 3. Doesn't really sell for a whole lot online, but you know what? I love my PlayStation 2 exclusives, and I had to get it. Alright, next up I've got some original Xbox games. The first one is a console exclusive. It's called Nightcaster. Played through a good bit of this game, and I was enjoying what I played so far of it. You play as kind of a wizard. You have an awesome upgrade system for you to upgrade your spells and all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of different spells that you can add to your arsenal and really defeat your enemies. You can really start to get powerful in this game, and you know, I was having a lot of fun with playing this game. This is a game that you should definitely look out for on the original Xbox. One thing I wanted to mention before I started showing the original Xbox games, but I forgot about, is that when I bought this lot off a guy on Letgo, and he was selling 50 original Xbox games for $90, and you know, I favored it for a while. Actually, the original price was at $100. I favored it. You know, he lowered it and he lowered it, and you know, I was like, hey man, will you take 80 for it? And most of the titles in this were either console exclusives or some really good titles for the original Xbox. And the next one up is called Hunter the Reckoning. I haven't really played anything of this game. It seems like a title that would be right up my alley, so I decided to keep it. Most of the games I bought in that lot, I actually had to sell to make some of my money back. I mean, when you pay $80 for 50 games, there's going to be some titles in there that you might want to sell and make some money back. So that's kind of what I did with that lot. Next up is Gunmetal. Don't know a whole lot about this game, but seemed like something that I would really like. I love mech games, so Gunmetal, cool. Next up is Legacy of Kain. This is kind of part of that Blood Omen series of video games. This one's really cool. I always love these titles, so this one stuck out to me, and I didn't have it. Now I do. I also picked up Call of Duty 3. Last month I picked up Call of Duty 2, and now I've got Call of Duty 3. Love to play through these campaigns on these old games, so you know, something that I'm looking forward to coming back to whenever I finally get some time. Another Xbox exclusive, and that's Crimson Sea. This is a game I haven't sunk a lot of time into. Crimson Sea. Also, I've got Azuric, another Xbox exclusive. Just always look for that Xbox exclusive. If you're like me, I love getting my console exclusives first whenever I find games, especially for these newer consoles. Now, a lot of them have been re-released on other game consoles, but I don't think this one has. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this seems like a cool game that I can sink some time into. Next up is Enclave. I don't know anything about it. Like I said, I have not been able to sink a lot of time into gaming lately. Just been so busy lately, running around and you know, doing some traveling, fixing up the game room and stuff. Right now, the game room is kind of you know, torn apart a little bit. I'm building a whole new shelf for my Sega Genesis collection, so hopefully we'll see that in one of my upcoming videos. Another title that I got for the original Xbox, and I'm gonna butcher the name on this, is Genma Onimusha. This looks like a game. I've heard of the Onimusha series, but this one is not an exclusive, but you know, something that I wanted to check out. Developed by Capcom, so it's generally going to be a pretty good game. And another title on the original Xbox is Blood Wake. Once again, console exclusive. Haven't had a lot of time to play it, but it's kind of cool to be adding it to the collection. Alright guys, and my last pickup for this video is truly a gem on the original Xbox. Like I said, whenever Sega kind of stopped making consoles and basically threw their hat in on the Dreamcast, they kind of were a little bit mad at Sony, so they kind of released some titles for the original Xbox that I think would have probably come out on the Dreamcast had it not failed so bad. And this is a game, oh man, it's so good. The House of the Dead 3. I remember playing the arcade game a whole lot whenever I was growing up. You know, we would do a whole lot of traveling. My family was real into hockey, and when my brother would go play hockey and I'd have to kind of go to the practice, I'd always go and play House of the Dead at the arcade. But this is House of the Dead 3. I don't know if this actually came out in the arcade. I remember playing a lot of House of the Dead 2 and House of the Dead 1 in the arcade. Not sure if House of the Dead 3 came out, but this game plays so well on the original Xbox. And you might be saying, like, how is a light gun game play so well on the original Xbox? Well, if you invest a little bit of money into a awesome light gun, this is the light gun that came out for the original Xbox, and this thing works so well with this game. You know, you have to have a CRT TV, obviously, to play any of these light gun games now. This is called the Mad Catz Blaster, and you know, it's just plug and play. It works perfectly with this. You plug it into your original Xbox, you got your CRT TV, and you know, you're gonna aim and fire. This one has like a little kind of like a D-pad. It's like an analog stick, but it clicks like a D-pad. It works really well with the menu system. You got your start and select button here, your black and white button, which I don't think is really used, your X and Y button, and obviously your trigger to shoot down your zombies. Another interesting thing that I find about it is it's got a little spot for your memory card there, so you can save. The other thing too about this game is, on this game is, if you beat the game, I think if you beat it, you can unlock House of the Dead 2. So you get 2 games for the price of 1, which is worth it in my opinion. This is a pretty rare title on the original Xbox, pretty pricey nowadays, but you know, if you can get your hands on it, and like I did, it's definitely worth it. Definitely a game that I keep coming back to and trying to get further and further, because I want to unlock the House of the Dead 2 so I can play that as well. But the Mad Catz Blaster, you know, it works perfect with it, and it's definitely something that if you can get your hands on, definitely keep an eye out for. You never know, you might find one of these Mad Catz Blasters at your retro video game stores, and you might want to just start there, just buy that, and then go from there. But this game, I got in that lot. Like I said, I paid $80. I got 50 original Xbox games. I kept 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I kept 11 of them. You know, I sold off the rest of them basically, or they're listed right now on my eBay store. So you know, if you're interested in some original Xbox titles, I've got a whole bunch up on my eBay store right now that you can check out. I'll leave a link in the description for that. But House of the Dead 3, this was kind of my big pickup for the month. This is one that, you know, I got a huge discount. I mean, I paid less than $2 for this game, and this game goes for like 40 bucks online. So I was definitely so stoked to be adding House of the Dead 3 to the collection, and it plays so well. So keep an eye out for it if you can get your hands on it. It's definitely a game that you'll really enjoy. I know I have. And alright guys, so that's basically my pickups this month. I didn't get 50 games into the collection this month, but you know, I got some pretty quality titles, and I'm pretty stoked to be playing all these games. So stoked to be adding a PlayStation 3 to the collection and starting to build that library. And you know, basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go for the console exclusives. So look forward to that and some future videos. You know, I'm always adding these Sega Genesis games to the collection, and I love adding any title to the Sega Genesis collection. Up to about 230 games for the Sega Genesis right now, and I've got a whole lot to go if I ever want to complete that collection. But as always guys, I want to thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoy the video like this, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and as always, enjoy your gaming and enjoy the rest of your day.